Good morning, students. Welcome to our e-learning class. Students, today in this video, we will continue with our chapter 6, that is Security in the Contemporary World. Chapter 6, as per the new syllabus, Security in the Contemporary World, from the book 1, that is Contemporary World Politics. So from this chapter, today we are going to cover the following topics. These are the following topics which are going to cover. The topics are traditional security and cooperation, non-traditional security, notions, new sources of threats, and cooperative security. These four topics we are going to cover today in this video. So students, generally as per my experience, from this one question will be asked, that is traditional and non-traditional security, that one. So I appeal all my viewers and students to watch this video carefully and listen to my lecture with a lot of attention. Fine students, now traditional security and cooperation, that is our first topic. So what is telling in the textbook, that is in traditional security there is a recognition that cooperation in limiting violence is possible. I mean, under traditional security there is a possibility, or there is a recognition that cooperation in limiting violence is possible. These limits relate both to the ends and the means of war. These limits relate to both the ends and means of the war. It is now an almost universally accepted view that countries should only go to war for the right reasons. It is said that countries should go only to wars for the right reasons, primarily for self-defense or to protect other people from genocide. For that purpose only people are going to war. And one should. War must also be limited in terms of the means that are used. Even wars also should be limited. Okay, limited by the means which are used. Armies must avoid killing and hurting. Armies must avoid killing and hurting. Okay, non-combatants as well as unarmed and surrendering combatants. I repeat, armies must avoid killing or hurting non-combatants as well as unarmed and surrendering combatants. They should be, or I say, they should not be exclusively violent. They should not be exclusively violent. Force must in a case be used. We can use forceful methods, but in case only after all the alternatives are been failed, then only we should use forceful methods of war. Traditional views of security do not rule out other forms of cooperation as well. The most important of these are disarmament. Yet disarmament means not to show interest in using arms and weapons, not to increase the military power, military strength. I mean, a country should not increase their military power, military strength by production of arms and weapons, ammunitions, and also recruiting the soldiers. Disarmament. Second one, arms control. I mean not to increase the production of arms. And confidence building, confidence building. Okay, disarmament requires disarmament requires all states to give up certain kinds of weapon. Disarmament, it is appeal. Actually, UN no appealed. Actually, one of the aim of UN is what? To achieve disarmament. So it appealed all the nations that they should not produce arms and weapons, ammunitions, and they should not increase their military strength. Otherwise, it will cause danger to the peace in the world. So disarmament requires all the states to give up certain kinds of weapons. For example, in 1972, Biological Weapons Convention (BWC), Biological Weapons Convention, and in 1992, after 20 years, in 1992, Chemical Weapons Convention (CWC) banned the production and possession of these weapons. So, as per these two commissions or conventions, it was banned that no country should possess these biological or chemical weapons. More than 155 states, I mean countries, yes, states means countries, acceded to the BWC, and 181 states acceded to CWC. I mean they agreed. Both conventions included all the great powers. That means in both the groups, all the great powers like Canada, America, Russia, China, France, these countries, they signed the agreement that they will not possess these biological and chemical weapons. Included the great powers, but the superpowers, the US and Soviet Union, did not want to give up this one actually. They did not want to give up. But they have to, because they signed that one. But later again they said, these two countries said that, both Soviet Union and the USA, they did not want to give up the third type of weapons of mass destruction. They agreed they will not give up mass destruction, namely nuclear weapons. So in nuclear weapons issue, they have taken their step back, Soviet Union and USA. So they pursued arms control. Similarly, here US and Soviet Union signed a number of, other than those two, US and Soviet Union has signed a number of other arms control treaties, I mean agreements. They signed other arms control treaties, including such as, listen to it, Strategic Arms Limitation Treaty, Strategic Arms Limitation Treaty 2, or we can say SALT 2, SALT, SALT 2, Strategic Arms Limitation Treaty or SALT, SALT 2. This was signed by both the countries. And the Strategic Arms Resolution or Reduction Treaty, I mean START, S-T-A-R-T, S-T-A-R-T, Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, also signed by both the countries. Fine, it's a good indication to the world. The Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, NPT, Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty of 1968, NPT was signed in 1968, was an arms control treaty in the same that it regulated the acquisition of nuclear weapons. So NPT also said that the country should not use nuclear weapons. Confidence building. Confidence building is a process in which countries share ideas. Confidence building is a process in which countries will share their ideas and information with their rivals. I mean, each country should share their information about military strength, what they are possessing. They should exchange their blueprints. Sometimes countries are taking the aerial surveys also, so that if there are such exchange of blueprints and checking through aerial survey, this helps in what? That each country will have check on other countries that they are not going to increase their military strength. Now moving to non-traditional notion or non-traditional notions. Here non-traditional notions of security go beyond military threats. It will go beyond the military threats to include a wide range of interests, to include a wide range of threats and dangers affecting the conditions of human existence. I repeat, non-traditional notions of security go beyond military threats to include a wide range of threats and dangers affecting the conditions of human existence. In the non-traditional conceptions, security is not just for the state, just for a single nation, single country, but also for individuals or communities or indeed all the humankind or mankind. So I repeat, in the non-traditional security conception, security is not primarily concerned with not only with what the state, but also the individuals, the communities, or the entire mankind or humankind. Non-traditional views of security have been called human security. So the another name of non-traditional security is called what? Human security. Another name of non-traditional security is called human security, or we can say global security. So global security or human security, both are nearly same, which comes under non-traditional form of security. Human security means what? The question is, what is meant by human security? Human security is about the protection of people. Human security is about the protection of people more than the protection of states. If you are going to protect the people, giving more importance to the protection of people than the state, that is called human security. I repeat, human security is about the protection of people more than the protection of state. Proponents of the narrow concept of human security focuses on violent threats to individuals. Okay, what? Proponents of the narrow concept of human security focuses on violent threats to individuals. Proponents of the proponents of the broad concept of human security argue that the threats agenda should include hunger, disease, natural disasters, because these kill far more people than war. These things will kill more people than war, genocide and terrorism combined. The idea of global security, another concept. The idea of global security emerged in the 1990s. The idea of global security emerged in the world, in the scene of world, in 1990s in response to the global nature of threats, global nature of threats such as global warming, international terrorism, health epidemics like AIDS and bird flu. Now we can add this COVID-19 also. Okay, now moving to our next topic, that is new sources of threats. What are the new sources of threats? Terrorism, human rights, global poverty, health epidemics, all will come under what? The new sources of threats. These are the present day threats. Wars are very less nowadays, but these problems are arising globally. So terrorism, first one, which comes under the new source of threat. First, terrorism. What is terrorism? You should know the exact meaning of terrorism. Don't think anybody who is doing anti-social elements are called terrorists. It's not like that. Terrorism refers to political violence. Terrorism refers to the political violence that targets civilians. Deliberately and indiscriminately. Terrorism refers to the political violence that targets civilians deliberately and discriminately is called terrorism. And nowadays we are seeing the terrorist activities, that Al-Qaeda, militants, all this. Now, human rights. I want to inform students, actually the United Nations organization is committed to protect the human rights, and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights adopted in 10th December 1948 by UN Charter or UNO. Through that UN Charter or from UN, no, it was instructed to all the nation states or all the states in the world that the respective government should provide certain rights to all their citizens. That's why every country they mentioned about the human rights in their constitution as we are having in India. Okay, so human rights have come to be classified into three types. There are three types of human rights. There are three types of human rights. The first type is political right, such as freedom of speech, freedom of assembly. Okay, freedom of speech and freedom of assembly. Here, assembly means not our school assembly. Here, assembly means what? The people should assemble at one place, common place, and they should have debate and discussions. Okay, they should have gatherings. They can do gatherings. So, political rights can be divided into three categories. The first is what? Political rights. Under political rights, it will come under what? Freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, right to vote, right to contest, etc. The second type is economic rights, or I can say economic and social rights. Economic rights means what? Right to adopt any occupation, right to profess any occupation, right to do any business of his own, her own choice. Social rights, I mean moving here and there without any restrictions. The third type is the rights of colonized people. The third type of right is what? The rights of colonized people. I mean those who are colonized by some foreign countries. Those who are under control of foreign countries for many years. So the rights of colonized people or ethnic people or indigenous minorities. Their rights. Indigenous minorities, ethnic group people or the colonized people. Their rights will come under also human rights. That is the third type of right. So political, social and economic, or economic and social, and this rights of the colonized people. Now coming to global poverty. Actually poverty is a global problem nowadays. Everywhere it is there, but depends upon the the percentage and the intensity. Varies from country to country. Depends upon the the level of development of the country and the size of the country. So global poverty is another source of insecurity. It's also another source of insecurity. Globally, this disparity, rich and poor, globally this disparity contributes to the gap between northern and southern countries of the world. The global poverty, this poverty making some difference between the northern and southern countries of the world. Very, very important concept, this is, students. Globally, this disparity, poverty, this disparity contributes to the gap. It leads to gap. This poverty is maintaining gap between the northern and southern countries of the world. Poverty in the south, poverty in the south has also led to large-scale migration. Poverty in the south is led to a large-scale migration to seek a better life, especially better economic opportunities in the north. Southern people, they are migrating to northern side. So like there are push and pull factors in geography you are reading. They are migrated to northern side. Why? For better opportunities or better standard of life, which are there in the northern part. So southern people moving to northern side. This has created international political frictions. When the migration is taking place internationally, it leads to political frictions, political problems. It leads to political problems, and poverty is leading to paving the way for political problems. Now health epidemics, dangerous diseases. Health epidemics such as HIV, AIDS, bird flu, and severe acute respiratory syndrome, that is what? SARS. What is the full form of SARS? Severe acute respiratory syndrome. SARS, S-A-R-S, SARS. We have seen have rapidly spread across countries through migration. So these diseases, how they spread? Actually, AIDS started in African continent, but it spread worldwide. How? Through migration. Bird flu started somewhere, spread worldwide. SARS started in one place, spread rest of the world. This COVID-19 started in Wuhan province of China spread to the entire world, and we are facing trouble. That's why this online teaching is going on. So all these things. So SARS have spread rapidly across the countries through migration. That's why we adopted lockdown, so that people should not migrate. They should not migrate. People to stay at home. Migration, sometimes business purpose also, sometimes tourism purpose also. I mean, migration due to business, due to tourism, and also due to military operations. Everybody knows that China is responsible for what? This COVID-19 virus. America is claiming on China, but China is claiming to America that it is through American military operations, through military, American forces, American soldiers, that disease was spread to the rest of the world. Now, other new and poorly understood disease, such as Ebola. Ebola is one disease. Virus, okay, hantavirus and hepatitis C. These also small disease have emerged. While old diseases like tuberculosis, I mean, these are the new diseases which I spoke now. And old disease like tuberculosis, malaria, dengue fever, cholera have ended. Polio ended. Very rarely we will find this disease right now. Okay, mutated into drug resistant forms that are difficult to treat. Now moving to last topic, that is cooperative security. The name itself indicates what? I mean, security through cooperation of all the nations, all the people. So what is meant by cooperative cooperative security? So students, non-traditional threats to security requires cooperation. Traditional security, no cooperation, nothing. Wars. Whereas non-traditional security always needs cooperation. So non-traditional threats, I mean, whatever threats comes under non-traditional, all those threats are needed what? Cooperation to avoid the dangers. That is called cooperative security. So non-traditional threats to security require cooperation rather than military confrontation. They need cooperation rather than military confrontation. For more effective is to make this cooperation more effective, we need to devise strategies, methods that involve international cooperation. I mean, what are the methods that helps in developing international cooperation among all the countries? Okay, cooperation may be bilateral. I mean, bilateral means what? Between two countries. Or cooperation may be multilateral. Or cooperation may be as a whole. Okay, so cooperation may be bilateral between any two countries. Sometimes multilateral. Sometimes regional cooperations. Sometimes continental wise cooperation. Continental wise, Asia Africa cooperation, or Europe and America cooperation, or Europe and Africa cooperation, like this. Continental or sometimes globally. Here continental itself comes under what? Globally. Cooperative security may also involve a variety of other players. Both international and national, international organizations and non-governmental organizations, business and corporations, and great personalities. So these all organizations and great personalities should play a vital role in providing cooperative security. So students, so this is the end of all these topics. We have covered these 4 topics today. Hope you have understood some of the concepts. I suggest you all to go through the textbook line to line. That will give you lot of information to you. It will add a lot of knowledge to you. Okay, it is highly impossible to cover all the topics in the limited time video. So I suggest you to read the textbook. We will come with some more topics in some other videos. So please wait for that one. Do watch those videos also. Till then, take care.